Good afternoon. Today I would like to tell about a tragic event that took place in Kazakhstan in 1931 till 1933, which became one of the largest crimes against humanity in history. We will talk about the so-called Holodomor, which claimed the lives of million people in the Soviet Union.
Let's start our video with what happened in Kazakhstan in the 1930s. In those years, the USSR was experiencing an economic crisis and the authorities sought to accelerate the industrialization of the country. As a result, massive campaigns were launched to collectivize and take the first place in the world in grain production.
In the course of collectivization, peasants' farms were united into collective farms, and lots were turned into public property. This sparked massive protests and riots, which were suppressed by authorities with brutal repression. In addition, grain production increased dramatically, but many farms couldn't withstand the load and went bankrupt. This led to a huge food shortage in the country.
In 1931, Stalin ordered the removal of most of the grain from Kazakhstan as part of a plan to export grain to other countries. As a result, millions of Kazakhstans began to suffer from hunger. A year later, the famine spread to Ukraine, and in 1933, it swept the entire USSR. In Kazakhstan, famine claimed the lives of up to 1.5 million people, which amounted to about 38% of the population. Why did the Holodomor happen in Kazakhstan and other regions of the USSR? The main reasons were collectivization and forcible seizure of grain from the peasant, which led to a decrease in land productivity and a reduction in grain production. Improved distribution of food when grain was exported abroad and the population suffered from hunger. Inefficient management of the economy and agriculture, lack of mechanisms for regulation and supporting peasant farms. And last but not least, weather conditions, including droughts, which reduced grain yields.
The Holodomor in Kazakhstan and the other regions of the USSR had enormous consequences. It claimed the lives of million people, caused great suffering and the destruction of the social and economic system in the country. The effects of the famine were felt many years after its end. At the regional level, the famine left a huge mark of the history in Kazakhstan and considered one of the most significant and tragic events in the history of people. In conclusion, I would like to note that the Holodomor in Kazakhstan and other regions of the USSR one of the tragic events in history of mankind. We must remember what happened and learn from the mistakes of the past, so that such a horror doesn't happen again in the future. As saying goes, who doesn't know his history is doomed to repeat it. Thank you for your attention.